Hey everyone, I hope you're having an amazing week. Today I had Nicole Richards with me on the podcast. She is a coach as well, and she really focused on helping people scale their business with a full life approach to things. So I adore our conversation. She's an amazing person. We talked a lot about pivoting. We talked about how to stay grounded when your star is rising. And we talked about overcoming some burnout. So great tips for you as an entrepreneur. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's dive in. Hey there, I am Nada Salvatore, and you're listening to the Accidental CEO podcast. This is a space for high-performing entrepreneurs who have built real success, but still find themselves tangled in the day-to-day. If you're done being the engine of your business and ready for scale with clarity, trust, and ease, you're in the right place. Each week, I'll bring you sharp strategies, identity-level mindset shifts, and leadership tools to help you rise above the business and lead from alignment, not exhaustion. Because scaling isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more of who you're meant to be. Subscribe now and let's build a version of your business that finally supports you. You're not just winging it, you are leading it. But let's be honest, being the CEO and the everything else can get lonely, messy, and exhausting. That's why I created the Accidental CEO Collective, a free Facebook community for creative entrepreneurs who never plan to be the boss, but damn it, here we are. Inside, I go live every week to share the real stuff. Strategies that don't require a business degree, behind-the-scenes struggles, because you're not the only one, and wins that we actually celebrate, even the tiny ones. If you're a scrappy, smart, sometimes slightly burnout founder who is ready to lead with more clarity and less chaos, this is your room. We're building a business that works for us, not one that runs us into the ground. Come join us. Let's grow, mess up, pivot, and succeed together. Just search the Accidental CEO Collective on Facebook and join our group today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. Today I have Nicole Richards with me. She is a best-selling author, podcaster, fellow podcaster, human potential and life alignment specialist, and her methodology with clients is based on a whole life approach, helping people discover their life's work by establishing that meaningful connection in their business and relationships. Super excited for this conversation. Welcome, Nicole.
Oh, thanks for having me, Nata.
Awesome. Just tell us a little bit about what you do now, where are you located, and then I want to backtrack a little bit at what got you to performing the kind of work that you do today.
Yeah, sure. So I think I have like two parts of me. So I'll tell you a little bit about my passion project, and then I'll tell you about the work that I do. So my passion project is called Minding His Business. And so the his is a capital HIS. And so I'm a Christian entrepreneur. Everything that I do is based on a faith-based premise. Everything that I do work is to honor God, but also honor my clients. And so my podcast is called Minding His Business. And what we do is we just have conversations about how our faith plays out in our business and what that looks like on day-to-day life. And so that's the podcast, but also there's a summit attached, and the summit will happen close to Toronto, Canada. So I'm a Canadian. And that takes place in November. And so my passion is just really having great and deep conversations about what it means to be a faith-based entrepreneur. My obsession and the work that I do is I work with entrepreneurs and leaders who feel like they have big ideas and big dreams, and they felt like they knew where they were going, but they got lost somehow. And whether they lost who they thought they were going to be, or sometimes they lose a job or a marriage, whatever that loss looks like, I help them get back on the path when they feel like they've lost their way.
That's very good. I love those two are amazing things to be connected to and to be helping other people with. So very exciting for you. Tell us, how did you get to work with clients like that? Was there a career before then? Or was it something that kind of led you to where you are today? So just share a little bit more about your story, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I had a fantastic career as a wedding makeup artist for well over 20 years. I feel like a dinosaur now, how to say that. I had a makeup studio and I had a team of 15 artists, and we went out and I guess you could say we painted the town red, and we had a fantastic time doing that. I felt, I'm going to say one day in 2018, a little bit of divine providence. I felt this impression, this thought. I guess I could say it was from God that I really should switch direction and close my business. And I was kind of in my Michael Jordan era, as I like to say. And things were going really well, and my work was getting published in magazines, and it was a great time. So it didn't make any sense to actually close my business. It didn't make sense to the people around me. It didn't make any sense to me, but I did. I kind of honored that. Some people call it intuition. Some people call it God talking to you. I honored that impression that I should make a change. And it was hard and it was difficult. And it was like turning off a financial faucet that was actually doing really well. And so it took me about a year and a half to wind my business down and make all of those changes. And so my last wedding was December 2019. I thought to myself, maybe I could still do this makeup thing in a smaller capacity. Maybe I don't really need a really big team. During my last wedding, I had a great time with my clients, very small bridal party. And when I walked out to my car, Nada, I tried to open the door and the door swung back at me. Like my actual car door almost hit me in the face. It was the strangest thing. When I looked at the door, I realized the wheel well had been dented, like someone hit my car and drove away. And in that moment, I thought, my $600 gig just turned into a $1,200 problem. And so that little small voice that was saying, "Hey, stop doing makeup, pivot, make a change, make a turn." I got the memo loud and clear, and that was the last time I took on a client to do makeup. Do you remember what happened 3 months after December 2019? Do you remember what happened 3 months later?
We've been mentioned a couple times here in the podcast.
Yeah. So remember when I said it didn't make any sense for me to close my business? It took a year and a half to wind it down. Well, 3 months after I got that really big memo in the form of a dent in my car, the whole world shut down. And people in the wedding industry, like the whole thing got turned upside down. People were still doing bookings booked in 2020 into 2022. It was quite a mess. And I think to myself, what if I hadn't honored that voice? What if I hadn't honored that divine inspiration? And so to answer your question of how did I get from over there to over here, I felt like I was being told to pivot. And because I honored that voice and I pivoted, I kind of dodged a really big bullet. I had been asked by some artists to coach them, and I had my own coach. I loved my business coach. And so it kind of seemed natural after being in business for so long to continue having those conversations, to be the facilitator of curious questions, and to help other people live out their dreams. And so here I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a great story. Thanks for sharing with us. How long did it take you to figure it out then what to do? If if makeup wasn't going to be your thing anymore, what was that next step and how long did it take you to figure it out what the next step was?
Well, I've always been a little bit of an odd makeup artist. Like I really love business. Like I had a very long career before I went out on my own. I had a very long career within the cosmetics industry, and I was always very curious how a company could have $1 billion evaluation selling lipstick. So all of those things were always curious to me. So it really didn't seem so odd to pivot into more of a business consulting or business strategy type of consulting business, if I should say it like that. But the other thing that I loved about being a makeup artist was having conversations with my clients. And I've always been a curious questioner, wondering things, how people got to doing the things that they did. And when you take the two together, the ability to listen and ask those curious questions, and then the love for business, it actually just seemed like a really good marriage.
That's great. I think that's a great combination, like you said. The listening, the asking the right questions, and just your desire to help people. So that's those are great things for a coach for sure. How has your definition of success kind of evolved from the time you were running your makeup studio to now like helping entrepreneurs align their business with their life values?
I think back then success looked like the next magazine I was going to get printed in, right? Like seeing my name kind of up in lights in print. thinking about the next photographer I was going to work with, right? Because in every industry, there's these names that you want to work with because then it feels like you're getting higher up on the ladder. And now success looks like when I'm talking to a client and they have this look on their face of, oh yeah, aha, like that kind of moment. Like that to me is success now. Like seeing someone remember like what they wanted to do and then realize, oh yeah, I can make these changes. Like to me, that looks like success now. And it's so much fun.
What was the growth like with your coaching business? Did it take you, a little while to get a good client base and to get to where you wanted to be? What was that journey like?
That journey was completely different than the journey of becoming a makeup artist, right? Because you just post pretty pictures and people call. They call in and they book. Becoming a coach is more of it's building a relationship. I built great relationships with different vendors as a wedding industry expert. But as a coach, those relationships get built piece by piece, person by person. I'm not the dancing, singing coach on Instagram that you see who's gone viral. And so it's a slower growth. It's absolutely a slower growth, but it's deeper, it's more meaningful. You could see how you've helped people in a different way. So yeah, it's a different pivot at this point in life.
So, from a very logistic standpoint, just to help people kind of understand if they are considering maybe make a pivot, understanding that it does take time, how were you able to kind of maintain the lifestyle and income coming in during that growth phase of your coaching businesses? And are you where you wanted to be right now with that business, or do you still feel like, there's a little bit more that you want to change, a little bit more that you want to grow?
As a makeup artist, I had a team, right? So when you duplicate yourself, it's the growth is exponential and it goes quite quickly. But now that's just me and it's one conversation at a time. So there's always room for growth, but how much I want to make sure I don't burn myself out, right? So that's why I have a passion project and then I have my work. So I think your question was more so like, how did that overlap go from closing one business and going into another? It was horrible.
Now, tell us how you really felt.
So when in the middle of closing my business, quite honestly, if I could be vulnerable, it's just you and me talking here. My marriage was ending. Like it was actually like my star was rising and my marriage was imploding actually. And so one of the things that I do with my clients, or rather, I should say, I started out in business strategy, and it seems like the pivot has been more to this whole life coaching approach. And the reason that I did that is because I could start to see myself in some of the clients that I was taking in. And what I mean by that is I was building in my old life, in my old career, I was building an empire that my life could not sustain. And so here's what I mean by that. When I got my makeup studio, I was 8 months pregnant with my second child and I was opening a studio, right? And my business was growing, but my marriage was like crumbling. When a person wants to build something really big, I really dig and ask deep questions to make sure that whatever they're building has a foundation that can sustain it. Do they have the support? Do they have the help? Like who's on their team that can actually help them get to where they need to be without them burning out? Because I was burning out and I don't want to help someone build something that they can't actually finish. I want to help them start and I want to help them succeed. And if they're already succeeding and their business is already growing, like let's go to the next level and make sure that you can actually finish this thing that you start.
Yeah, that's great. As someone who experienced that rapid business growth with the makeup side of things, what advice can you give to entrepreneurs on staying grounded as their star rises?
I wasn't that grounded. I was like,
Looking back now, I'm sure you can see some things you could have done.
it's so interesting when you look back at something that you were doing previously, or you could just look back at the last 5 or 10 years of your life, and it's really good to be able to self-reflect and say, "Oh, maybe I should have done that in that way." So I'll tell you a story. I'm going to be again really like super vulnerable. In my past career, I had an opportunity to be on TV. I was going to do a makeover on a model. And so I called a dress store, like a bridal store in my area, and I asked if I could borrow a gown. Now, I normally would borrow gowns when I had a creative shoot or anything that I needed to do. I would normally borrow a gown downtown in Toronto, I would go to one of the big dress stores down there and borrow like a $10,000 gown. But I didn't live in downtown Toronto and I didn't want to make that trip. So I called a local designer, and I didn't have a relationship with this person. It was just difficult. Like it wasn't connecting. She was very concerned. And we're really talking about a $1,200 gown, which is still valuable and she's still worried about, versus a $10,000 gown. So when you say, how do you help people like stay humble as their star was rising, my star was rising and I was not humble in this particular situation. I remember thinking in my head, this woman doesn't know who I am. Like if she did, she would just lend me the dress, right? And we wouldn't have to do this thing back and forth. And she could just call this person and this person and this person. And here I'm printed in the magazine. Like I'm the one who always gets the dress. And I can look back on that conversation and say, what the heck was wrong with you? Like, right? You were kind of so full of your own hype that you were kind of missing an opportunity to make a connection with this person. So to answer your question, how do you make sure you stay humble as your star is rising? It's to remember that your star could fall at any time. Life can change at any time. And now you could end up having to start over, make a pivot, have to stop working. And so it's really important at all times to stay humble, regardless of what's going on.
Yes, it can fall at any point. I like that. I think it's a very good visual of, keeping yourself humble. And I, again, appreciate you sharing that story with us. Let's be honest, you didn't build this business to work 80 hours a week, chasing invoices and solving problems at midnight. But now you're hit a wall. You've outgrown DIY and you're spinning your wheels trying to scale and stay sane. That's where one-on-one coaching with me comes in. This is not a cookie cutter program. It's tailored, strategic support designed specifically for founders like you, the ones who built something from nothing and are now carrying all the weight. We'll get clear on what's keeping you stuck, simplify your focus, and build a plan that gets results without burning you out. If you want a second brain and no BS sounding board, and someone who can help you make better, faster, smart decisions, this is for you. Head out to accidentalceo.co/coaching. That's accidentalceo.co/coaching. And let's work together to grow your business and take your life back. Let's talk a little bit about some strategies that maybe you recommend to prevent that burnout that you felt when things are growing really fast and things are crumbling on the personal end of things, and kind of do what you can to keep things. I don't like to use the word balance, but like at least in harmony. Your life being in harmony with your work and in your dream of being an entrepreneur.
How to keep things in harmony. There's a couple of things that when I work with my clients and ask them like a simple question of like, what's your hobby? What do you like to do? And they don't have an answer. So as women, some women have kids. We are so busy taking care of everybody else and running our businesses that we're not taking care of ourselves. I'm going to say that burnout is really your soul telling you that it's exhausted, and you got to stop. You got to slow down before you're forced to stop. Your soul will actually shut down if you don't slow down and take things a little bit more gracious in your life. One of the first things is to make sure that you have a hobby, to make sure that you're doing something to fill that part of you that needs meaning and fulfillment and excitement. And I would say if I ask that question to like 100 people in the last year, like 10 of them have a hobby. Now, my hobby actually turned into a business, right? So I then had to go out and find another hobby. It took me a long time to figure that part out. So find something that you like to do that will actually nurture that inner part of you. The next thing is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? And so a couple of years ago, there was this hustle culture in business, and the men used to say, you can sleep when you're dead. Like, get back to work, you can sleep when you're dead, right? But when I have two small kids, that didn't work for me. And I didn't pass out, but I actually tipped over in front of a customer, against in front of a client. I was doing a client's makeup, and I literally hit the ground in my studio. I was sleep deprived. I was tired. I was trying to do it all. I was burning the candle at both ends. And so, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. So making sure you take care of yourself, whatever self-care looks like for you. And sometimes self-care is just sitting in a quiet room and having a moment to yourself and giving yourself that time. And the third thing I would say is go to bed. It's absolutely, have you ever heard of revenge bedtime? I think that's what it's called.
Mm-mm, no.
And I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me. But it's when women actually try to take back that quiet time during the day, they try to take it back at night. So they might scroll on their phone or play a game on their phone or do something, anything to try to take back the time that they wanted for themselves during the day. But then they end up staying up really late. So they're not necessarily working, they're not necessarily cleaning the house, right? But they're trying to find their own personal time, but they end up staying up till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I believe it's called revenge bedtime. So going to sleep, even though we are in business, we're trying to hustle it out, but making sure that you actually, so funny, your kids have a bedtime. Apparently we need one too.
Entrepreneur bedtime. Talk to us a little bit about the whole life approach that you use with your clients. How do you feel like this helps them kind of discover their one life's work?
So I believe that there's a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. I'm 40. I'm going to be, actually, no, I just had a birthday. I'm 48.
Happy birthday.
My goodness, just last week. But I think about the 88-year-old version of me because I plan on being 88 one day, right? And so there's this version of ourselves that we haven't met. And if you think about it, Nada, when you are, I know you don't want to think about being 88 because most people don't want to think about that. But we're going to get there. One day we are going to get there. And so what do we want that version of ourselves to be proud of today? Like, what can we do today to make that version of us proud of us? And so, like, you should be proud of this podcast that you're producing and these conversations that you're having. Can you imagine looking back way over there and looking back to today saying, yeah, I had these conversations with people and we had great flow and connection of energy, and you were able to put this out to other people who needed the information.
Mhm.
Right. And so a whole life approach is looking at where you want to be, but also nurturing where we are today, but remembering that there is another version of you. She's coming. She's coming. And we want to make sure that she's taken care of financially, spiritually, and also physically. But you want to also be proud of the things that you did to get there.
Yeah, that's very good. I love that. So you went through some personal challenges. You shared a few of them with us. You know, you were divorced, and I know you decided to homeschool your children as well. So talk to us about how that kind of influenced your approach to business and coaching in general.
Okay, because I apparently didn't have enough to do with my life, so I decided to homeschool my kids.
You're one of those that
Oh
decides
my
to add
God.
things, huh?
Oh my goodness. You know what? It's like it's very interesting when you make pivots and you make life changes. I very much defined, as you could hear in that story about the dress designer, that shop owner, I defined myself by my career, right? And I defined myself by my career, and I was very happy to be a married woman. And those two things ended. So thank God I'm still a mom, but those two things ended. And so when they ended, I really needed to think about like, who am I? Who am I now? Like, who am I going to be? Who am I now? And then when COVID happened and the entire world shut down and my kids were now at home with me and I'm trying to grow my coaching business, and I look down on my right side and I have a child on a Chromebook beside me in my office. And I look on the left and I have another child on a Chromebook inside my office. And I'm thinking, what just happened to my life? Like, I don't have my studio. I'm on my way to possibly at the moment being divorced. And I have two children at home, and it seems like they're never leaving. Like, nobody knew when they were going to go back to school. And so I had to redefine my thought process on life, on business, on success. And it was quite an adventure to get there. And I don't know if I answered your question. I might have gone off.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Do you feel like that has had a big influence in how you approach your coaching in your business right now?
Yeah, it does because my kids they're home, and so I have to structure my life in a way that works for them, right? Not just that works for me, because we have to do the educational part. I would say actually it is almost like having a whole life approach, right? Because my life now is so different. I can't always separate business from what's going on at home. Whereas before, when I had a studio, I could. And when I would go out and do weddings, I could. My son is in one place, my daughter is in another. And like mommy's working, right? And so I think it's really cool for them to see how I work. Even when I had a studio, they kind of grew up in the studio. It's interesting for them to see how I work, for them to say things, and I realize, oh, they're listening. Like sometimes they actually hear what I'm saying to people. And as an entrepreneur, it shows my kids that they can do some of the things they want to do. So my daughter has a business. She taught herself to crochet 3 years ago. She's 14 now. She does markets. She sells her crochet creative, and we have these conversations about profit loss, buying your supplies, the bank of mom and dad. We are funding your business, but now you have to think about the fact that if you ask me for something, now you need a loan, right? You need a loan. You need a loan from the bank. What does it look like as a business owner to need to pay the bank back, right? And so at 14 years old, she's running her business and she's getting a crash course in entrepreneurship. My son is 10, and so we've come up with a couple of business ideas that he can also work on, and they're quite the team. Yeah, so they get to watch it from a really interesting vantage point.
That's great. I love when we get to pass on those lessons to our kids, and definitely important to be able to, especially to teach them about entrepreneurship and they're just thinking about what you can do. And I feel like it's so important to have these conversations. I have my mother-in-law was visiting, and I have two girls, and I've helped them with their breakfast, and then I took a bite out of like their waffles and their pancakes, and then my mother looked at me, looked at the kids, and she's like, "What was that?" And the kids were like, "Taxes." I was like, "That's right. I'm teaching them what taxes are. Everything you get, a big bite, it's going to be taken out of it by the."
Oh my
So,
god!
so they crack up all the time because they know what taxes are. Because I take a bite of their breakfast every morning to tell them what that means. So,
Oh my gosh,
little
that's
lessons.
so awesome. That is so awesome. Okay, I don't know, that may not work in my house because they're very serious about their French fries and things. Like if I try to take a bite of anything. Yeah, that's a
When
great.
they were little, I used to tell them I was testing to make sure it wasn't poisoned. But now they're old enough, it's all about taxes. So,
You know what? We haven't talked enough about taxes. I'm going to do that. Okay, thank you.
yeah, yeah. You'll be surprised how much these kids can absorb and understand. So it's pretty funny. I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. So tell us about minding his business. What kind of conversations people can expect, and what can they hope to take away from the episodes?
So this podcast started off with the idea that I was going to talk to faith-based entrepreneurs that were in business. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I found myself often in rooms where I had this spiritual belief in God, and I was usually the only person in the room that believed that. And so there's interesting things that come out of that. Like when I say to you, I feel like God told me or impressed upon me to close my business. There's many people who are like, what does that even mean? Right. And so I started this podcast to have those business conversations about what our faith looks like when we're working with our clients. But it's kind of morphed into something I didn't even expect, where my guests are telling their stories. They're talking about the interesting things that have happened to them, stories that you just wouldn't even expect, how they run their business from a biblical perspective, but what business also looks like, building relationships when you're thinking about how to honor God, how to honor the client, but also how to honor God. And so that all comes out in September. It's been quite like a growing. I don't think I expected to grow as much as I did, if that makes any sense. I don't know if you like. I love the name Accidental CEO. I don't know if you started out and you pivoted, or like how you've kind of grown from these conversations. But I look at everything so differently now, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's almost hard to explain. I don't know if that's making any sense, but it is hard to explain. But I'm really loving the depth of conversations that are coming out of it.
What do you feel like has been the most rewarding part of the career shift, and how did that impact you personally? when you made that shift?
One of the most rewarding things is seeing my clients like come to me very timidly with an idea and then watching them just kill it on social media. Like just I have a client who when she came to me, she was going through the real estate licensing program, and then like she just didn't even think she could finish it. She didn't think she could get there. Who would trust her to purchase a home? And now she's getting all these awards. Like I go on her Instagram accounts and she's got this award, and that award, and this award. And I'm like, wow, I remember when you were so scared to actually make this massive pivot, like in your 40s, and this idea of who am I to think that I could possibly do this? And now you're just slaying it. Like you're the President's Club Award. And I have a client who her business isn't for profit. It is more of a passion project. And she decided to just basically use her musical skills and go onto Spotify, write her own songs and record them. And so she went from zero to like millions of downloads. Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? Right. And so working with people, like I said, like when they don't know where their dreams went and they need to reignite those dreams and then watching them live it out, that has really been one of the most rewarding parts of what I do.
My last question for you, it's a curveball because I didn't tell you that was coming. What would you say was the biggest failure turned lesson you've had with all of your business adventures so far?
The biggest failure turned lesson. I think I'm having trouble because I don't think I stay in that thought process as something's a failure for very long.
Okay, thanks. I'm not the only one because I struggle to answer that question every time I get asked.
Like I could look at that story with my car door as like a failure, right? But it was a lesson that, yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't think I have anything that I would consider a failure. I think they're all really good lessons if we allow them to be. Yeah, they're really good lessons if we allow them to be.
That's good. I'll take that. I'm with you, so I get it.
Yeah, looking for growth in everything, like regardless of the crazy thing that happens, like really just looking for that growth. If there's a client that you wanted to work with and they didn't book you, there's a reason, right? Like there's a lesson in that. So yeah, I don't see things as failures.
Very good. I love that. Nicole, where can people find you if they want to work and learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm at NicoleRichards.co that's my website address, and as well as Instagram, I think also on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find. I just love asking people curious questions to help them figure stuff out.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us, sharing all the stories and the amazing perspectives and tips for entrepreneurs. I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you. It was really nice to meet you.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us today. And I hope to see you next week on another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.